Cupcakes are, I feel like, an underrated dessert. They're just as versatile as cake in that you can make any style with them. They're single serving, they're easier to handle, and in my opinion, they're easier to decorate. So today I just wanted to show you my simple vanilla cupcake recipe. As always, I'm using a stand mixer for this, which you don't have to use. You can use a bowl and a whisk. But if you're doing a lot of baking like I've been doing recently, then it's definitely a good investment to make. Also, I tend to use the paddle attachment instead of the whisk attachment when making cakes because the whisk tends to work more air into the batter, which we don't want here. This recipe is incredibly basic and simple, and it comes together in a matter of minutes. And we're going to start by sifting our dry ingredients, which consist of 180 grams or 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 6 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and 3 grams or 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. We sift to get rid of any clumps in the powders because if they stay clumps throughout the cooking process and you bite into them, it's just not pleasant. Then over to our stand mixer, we're going to cream together our butter and sugar. So we have 113 grams or 1 stick of softened unsalted butter and 200 grams or 1 cup of white sugar. Just mix that on medium for like 30 seconds to get everything evenly distributed. Then in go 2 eggs, preferably at room temperature. And speaking of, it's best to have all your cold ingredients brought to room temperature first because they'll incorporate better with the dry ingredients. So if you have the foresight to take them out like 30 minutes beforehand, that will make a difference. If not, it's not the end of the world if you have to use colder ingredients as long as the butter is softened. I'm also adding a couple teaspoons of vanilla extract here, and then I'm beating everything together until it's nice and ribbony. Now for our last set of ingredients, I have 120 mils or 1/2 cup of whole milk, 60 grams or 1/4 cup of sour cream, and then the dry mixture that we sifted earlier. We're going to combine everything in a certain order to try to get everything mixed in the most efficient manner possible so that we don't work too much gluten into the batter unless you want tough cupcakes. So I'm starting with half the flour mixture, mixing roughly until it's almost combined, and then I'm pouring in about half the milk and mixing that again, and then all of the sour cream at once and mixing that, and then the other half of the milk, mixing, and finally the rest of the flour mixture, mixing at the end. Leaving some of the flour till the end is going to minimize the risk of overworking it. So you stop mixing once it's just combined. You don't want to go any further than that. You can even finish with a spatula if the sides have a little bit of flour left on them, that's fine. But that's it for our flour. We're going to prep our cupcake tray, which this recipe makes 12 cupcakes, so I'm using that size of a tray. I'm just fitting my 12 cupcake liners in and spraying each with a little cooking spray, just in case the cake wants to stick after it's cooked. This will minimize the amount of residue that's left on the wrapper. Then I'm using one of these press release scoops. This is a 1.5 tablespoon size, but you can use a bigger size if you have it. And then we're just going to carefully pour evenly into each liner until each is about 2/3 of the way full. You want to be super careful about overfilling here, and you'll see that I even overfilled a few of these. But anywhere from like half full to 2/3 full is going to be fine. I'm going to give it a couple taps on my countertop to release any bubbles inside, and then I'm putting it into a preheated oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And just keep an eye on them. Mine took a little more than 20 minutes. You can do the toothpick test to make sure that it's clean when it comes out, and that's how you'll know the cake is done. And like I said, you can see I overfilled a couple of these because they started overflowing onto the pan, which makes it a little ugly, but it's not the end of the world. Remove to a wire rack and let everything cool completely in the pan until it gets to room temperature before you try to frost it. Which, speaking of icing, I'm going to be using this Italian buttercream that I made in the video I posted yesterday. I'll link that below. It's a recipe from the Preppy Kitchen, and it's going to be amazing on these cupcakes. I actually froze mine until I needed it, so I defrosted it in the fridge and then at room temperature for a few minutes, and then I'm just using the stand mixer to bring it back to the consistency that I want. Then I'm spooning that into a piping bag, and I'm using this large star tip. It's an 828. I'll link that below as well, but you can use any large tip to decorate these. And speaking of decorating, this is actually my first time decorating cupcakes, and I am certainly not good at it, as you can see. But as I went, I learned that you hold the bag low until it starts to spread to the edges of the cupcake before you start to lift it. And there's certain techniques you can do, like wiggling it up and down to get these wavy designs in your icing, or you could do something like a spiral motion, but again, I am no expert at this, and I would not look at me for advice. Also, if you're not serving these immediately with the buttercream, it's best to keep these in an airtight container in the fridge until you eat them. There's other icings that you can leave at room temperature, but basically the way you store your cupcakes is going to depend on what kind of icing you use. But let's go ahead and taste test and see how good these are. Well. Something else I've never done before, which is cupcakes. I'm going to take out this ugliest one. It's all vanilla here. You could add things like sprinkles, or you could change the buttercream to chocolate, or you could change the cake to chocolate, but this is just a base recipe that's simple and easy, so that's all I wanted to go for. I'm running a little behind. I'm bringing these to a church gathering tonight, so I'm going to make this quick, and let's dig in. What can I say? It's butter, sugar, flour. How can you go wrong with all that? But this isn't your typical vanilla frosting. It is a very rich buttercream, and we spent a lot of time doing it, so It kind of steals the show here, but the cake is the perfect match for something like that. It's got just the right amount of vanilla kick to it, but it doesn't overpower anything else, so you can kind of really get into the star of the show, which is the buttercream. I'm very happy with this. This is a great alternative to cookies or brownies, which I typically bring to functions, but this is a nice way to change it up, and people will definitely enjoy if you bring this. But like I said, I have to pack this up and get out of here, so I appreciate all of you that are watching, and I'll see y'all next time.